seriously thought about the idea of having an independent Hong Kong? Hands up. How many of you? How many of you have seriously thought about the idea of independent Hong Kong? Wow. I'm not sure whether that's good news or bad news. Okay. How many of you have thought about the idea of independent Hong Kong? Okay, that's better. That's better. Okay. You know, I keep asking the same question to all sorts of people. You know, I do a lot of sharing. Week in and week out. I go to secondary schools, even primary schools sometimes, and universities, and student bodies, and so I do a lot of this. And I keep asking myself the same question: what drives young people towards the idea of an independent Hong Kong? And I haven't been able to come up with an answer. I'm not sure I'll be able to come up with an answer today from you, but the fact that you have thought about the topic is a good indication. Let me just start by saying this, that I think it was 2 days ago that I saw on television Mr. Edwin Lau. Does anybody know who he is? Edwin Lau? No? Yes, okay. He is from a party called the Indigenous Party, and he advocated independent Hong Kong. But what surprised me was that when he talked in front of the television camera, I think 2-3 days ago, he said, my goal is to get into LegCo. And the ends is more important than the means, and therefore I can ditch the idea of promoting independent Hong Kong. And I said, I thought, hey, wait a minute, that's strange. So promoting independent Hong Kong is a means and not an end? Have you thought about that? So you're trying to get to something else via an argument that we should have independence. And that got me thinking, how many out there, people, that is, of course, who are serious about wanting Hong Kong to be independent? Or is it that they have a different goal? And independent Hong Kong is merely a kind of means. Then that started me thinking about, well, what would that goal be? I mean, Edwin Lau said his goal is getting into LegCo. I don't know why he's so crazy about LegCo. I just left it. And if you get into LegCo nowadays, you don't get to do anything because they keep filibustering and they get in quarrate and then you end up having nothing to do. So I'm not sure about getting to LegCo is a real target. Now, I suppose another goal would be getting universal suffrage. I think most people would think that is the goal. And I get to think that that's a strange way of achieving universal suffrage as well. Why do I say that? What do you think is the foundation of a democratic election system? Does anybody know? Too tough a question, huh? Okay. A democratic election system needs a constitution. It needs a country. If you don't have a country, and you don't have a constitution, you can never have an election system. Make sense? By the way, if you don't have a constitution and you don't have a political system in place, you don't have rule of law either. Because if there is no government, there would be no LegCo, there would be no judges, there would be no courts, there would be no laws, and then obviously you won't have a rule of law. So the first thing you want to establish, if you really want to achieve genuine democracy, is that you need to have a country. and a constitution. Fine. You say, okay, but I want to start a new one. I want to start a new government. I want Hong Kong to be a new country. Well, then the thing you have to do is to, first of all, establish an independent country. You need to get everybody recognize you. Then you need to set up a constitution. Then you've got to set up a system. Then you get to talk about what kind of democracy you want Hong Kong to have. A lot of young people come up to me and say, oh, Mr. Tong or Ronny, everybody calls me Ronny. And he said, look at Singapore. Why can't we be like Singapore? Has anybody been to Singapore? Yeah, sure. I mean, surely most of you, but you know where it is, right? Quite near us. Okay. You know that Singapore is not a democratic country. It is not. It doesn't even have a rule of law. Because you try and libel the president of the Singapore government. You know what will happen to you? You get thrown into jail. What they do is that, whenever you have a politician or somebody who criticizes the government, they sue you for libel. They sue you for libel, and then the court will slam you with a judgment, which is few millions. And if you can't pay, you're going to put into jail. That's not the kind of country that you want to be in, trust me. Nor do you want to be without a country. There are lots of people now floating in the Mediterranean. You know where the Mediterranean is, right? Okay, I'm talking about the sea, all right? They don't have a country. They are absolutely free. There are no laws to restrain them. But you don't want that kind of freedom, right? The kind of freedom that you want is a constitutional order under which your core values will be protected. Your core values will be respected. And I'm talking about freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of association, freedom of expression. All those things needed a constitutional order. And people talk about the right to elect. And they say this is a very important right. And you know what that right is compared with, say, freedom of speech? You know what is the difference between the two? Anybody? You're very quiet today. Freedom of speech is a human right. Freedom to elect is not a human right. It is a civic right. Okay, what is the difference between the two? Human right is a right which comes to you as a person. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter where you come from. Even if you're not a Hong Konger, you're not a Hong Kong citizen, you still enjoy freedom of speech. But not the right to elect. You have to be a citizen of Hong Kong. You have the right of the vote, in fact, before you are entitled to cast your vote. So people come to Hong Kong, they have to stay here for 7 years, they have to naturalize, become a Hong Konger, before they have a right to vote. So there lies the difference. And what is the importance of this difference? The importance is, it comes back to what I started off earlier on. That is, you need to have a constitutional order. You need to have a government before you can have voting rights. So if you come to me and say, I want to dismantle the constitutional order, I want to dismantle our political system, I want to start another country because I want genuine democracy, then I'm saying you're going the roundabout way, you're going the long way. Under the basic law, doesn't matter what happened in the past, there is a promise that we'll get universal suffrage. I want to see that happen within my lifetime. And that's possible. I firmly believe it is possible. So that there is no need to go and dismantle the one country, two systems. And this is the question that I keep asking every student that I talk to. And I said, what do you think will come after one country, two systems?
One country?
One country, one system. All right? You wouldn't get one country, three systems, sorry. Or one country, four systems. It just won't happen. So for anybody that comes around and say, I want independence, they first of all run the risk of having one country, one system. And I haven't even talked about the price that we have to pay. And I was in Chingmun Secondary School 2 weeks ago, and I gave another same topic, talk about independence Hong Kong. Of course, I talk in Chinese. And I asked the student, I said, do you know that if Hong Kong becomes independent, that you have to enlist? He said, oh, wow, I didn't know that. I said, no, if Hong Kong is an independent country, you have to have its own army, and then you have to enlist boys and girls, men and women. And I asked the next question, do you know who's going to pay for that? You. I'm sorry, you and me. I have to pay too. And that means increase of taxation. And I asked, if you want to get to independence, you know what is the first thing that hit us before you can get independence? That we lose our international financial center as a status. Because there will be instability, and I'm talking about long-term instability, because no independence can be gained overnight. Let's not forget that. You have to spend time to fight over many things. You have to go through a period of instability, and that means that our Hong Kong, as we know it, international financial center, international traveling hub, international commercial center, probably would all have to go, because business people, they don't like instability. Now, of course, I'm not saying that we like money more than a noble cause. All right? I, for one, I'm a believer that we should go for noble causes. But I'm just talking about myself. I have no right to gamble your future because I believe that I want independence. It is your future that you've got to take care of. So you've got to have to convince yourself, first of all, that it is something that you want. And it comes back to the first question I asked all of you. Have you seriously thought about this issue? If you haven't seriously thought about this issue, I ask you to seriously think about this issue. Sorry. Seriously think about this issue. It is important. Don't just think about it, but seriously think about it. The important word is the word serious. All right? And if you having thought about it seriously, and you come back and tell me, Ronny, I still think independent Hong Kong is good, then I respect your decision. What I want students to do is to be able to think. This is the most important thing. This is why we're educating you. We're spending millions of dollars on you, right? You know that for every single student, we need to spend something like 3.8 million per week to get you fully educated. This is not counting that you go to universities like Durham. Right? If you go to Durham, probably a lot more expensive. You've got to think about the issues which affect your future, affect your family, affect who you are, what your core values are like in 10 years' time, 20 years' time. So don't just look up something on the internet or in the Facebook and take on everything without question. Joining the debate, I mean, debates like today, or argue with people like me, and see ultimately, what is your view on the matter. Now, I probably been talking far too much. I'm getting very boring, I know. Now I want to hear from you. Now, is there any questions from you that you want to either you want to express or ask me, or you want to say, hey Ronny, you're talking about rubbish for the last 10 minutes. Let's get some real answers. Now you want to do that. Raise your hand. I want to talk to you. Yeah, that gentleman over there. Green tie.
Oh, I was just wondering. One part. Earlier you mentioned about the right to elect. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. You mean? You did mention that as a civic right, and that as Hong Kong people, society would, the Hong Kong government, the society would then protect your civic right because you are a citizen of Hong Kong. But then, for example, looking at, previously Occupy Central Exacta, we've got people who want to try to defend the right for some people to be elected. What is your view on, there's several definitions of universal suffrage in general. From Democrats, from pro-establishments, etc. Do you think that could be that as a civic right could be undermined by Hong Kong?
Well, I think it's not quite right to talk about civic rights being undermined. The right question, obviously, is that do you want to live the fullest potential of having a right to elect the people that you want to represent you? And I think the bottom line is that there should be competition, there should be choices. There's no point to ask CY Leung against CY Leung against CY Leung and you pick one of the three. That's not democracy. You want to be able to have different choices. And a lot of people say that the basic law is a straitjacket. It doesn't allow us to have genuine democracy. I would totally disagree with that because during the I think 2 years ago when we talked about political reform, I did put forward a package which is wholly within the framework of the basic law, and Hong Kong University invited 13 international experts to come to Hong Kong and to look at some of the packages that we put forward, including my proposal, and all the experts agreed that my proposal fit the bill of genuine democracy, and it's wholly within the basic law. And I said, look, if Ronny Tong can think about it, I'm sure nearly everybody in Hong Kong can think about a proposal which would fit both the basic law and international standards. So the fact that we have a basic law, it shouldn't be a hurdle. The fact that we failed once shouldn't be a hurdle either. Because if it is something very easy, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you about this. It is a difficult issue. What we need to do is to have faith in being able to achieve genuine universal suffrage within our lifetime. This gentleman asked about Occupy Central. I have nothing against Occupy Central. Nothing at all. It's just that I tend to look at students and I say, look, if you want to do something, express something, have a clear message or have a clear goal. What exactly that you want to express? And I think Occupy Central suffers from that because there's just almost like a National Day parade in Hong Kong. A lot of people have got very different views about what they are protesting about, what they're demonstrating about. I think if people get more down to earth, they can roll up their sleeve and they can say, look, I want this to happen, and let's see that if we can work this through with Beijing, with the SAR government, with many other different sectors in our community, and see what happens. Rather than just to say, I want this, and I want nothing else. That is not the way to move forward. I think, if you read news every day, you know that nowadays the most effective way of resolving differences is to sit down and talk about it. Try to convince the other side. You can't start a war whenever there is difference between two nations, the difference between two interest groups. So it's the same for democracy. If people start making a stand and without conceding anything at all, I think it's very, very difficult to get to the kind of consensus that we need to bring up on democracy. But obviously, as I say, everybody's going to chicken. Everybody needs to contribute. Any of you? Yes?
Oh, sorry. I was wondering how exactly would you define modern democracy? Like
Sorry?
How would you, how would you define modern democracy? How would you draw the line between, say, establishment and democracy?
Well, I think these are two very different questions. I think democracy to me, I've already explained that democracy to me is choice, is competition. People can freely elect the person that they want to see to represent them. In Hong Kong, we have part of that, although our LegCo is not fully directly elected. We're working on that. We hope that in due course, the whole LegCo will be freely elected by people like you. But there is no hard and fast definition of democracy, I'm afraid. The key question is that it has to be the kind of democracy that would fit in with the community that you live in. In Hong Kong, unfortunately or fortunately, we have a unique system. We have this one country, two systems. And therefore, it's got to fit in with one country, two systems. And you asked the question, how do we differentiate between the government and the pandemic?
How would you define moderate democracy?
Well, I've just answered that. So what is the second part of your question? You said...
How do you draw the line between pandemic?
Well, I'm not sure. There is a line to be drawn. The government is not free elected, which is the antithesis of a democratic government. Everybody knows that. And we're working to try to improve on that. Unfortunately, in Hong Kong, we have the presidential system. I don't know why they thought the presidential system worked for Hong Kong in the 80s. We probably weren't born there, right? 80s? A presidential system, like the US system, is a system whereby you have one executive with all the powers in that place. But it can only work in a democratic country like the United States. But even the United States, it doesn't really work. You look at Obama. I mean, he hasn't got the majority in the Congress, and he had lots and lots and lots of trouble, even in the United States. So it would be even disastrous for Hong Kong, where the executive, the chief executive, is not freely elected, and then you get people like CY Leung, and nobody likes him, right? Oh, you like him? Okay, congratulations. But if you have a presidential system like the United States, and yet the chief executive is not really elected, then it's wholly disastrous. Wholly disastrous. And that's why the question of governance in Hong Kong is giving rise to so much conflict and so much problem. Unfortunately, the easy answer, of course, is that the chief executive to be universally elected. But unfortunately, we have the one country, two systems. And Beijing government is, frankly, they're paranoid about getting someone who is not answerable to Beijing to be the chief executive. And what it comes down to is a question of lack of trust. If they trust people of Hong Kong, like people like you, they shouldn't worry. But we're actually moving away from building up trust with people advocating independent Hong Kong. And I think now it's even more difficult. And the pan-democrats, I'm not sure they are for or against independent Hong Kong. I frankly don't know. Because they say that they are against the idea of independent Hong Kong, but the way they behave seems to be that they really don't mind independent Hong Kong. And they use euphemisms like self-domination, There's another big topic which we talk about for another hour, self-determination. It origins from the Atlantic Treaty. It originates from colonial era, colonialism, and self-determination. In fact, it's a long word for independence. But the Pan-Americans are advocating that, and that is not, building up trust. This is not generating trust between Beijing and Hong Kong. I'm not saying that we should appease Beijing, but if we can't have trust, then we probably would take the long road before we can get to genuine democracy. But I'm sure independence is not the answer. Because if any of you can come up with a good argument against what I've said in the last 15, 20 minutes, I'll be quite happy to hear them after the debate. Thank you.